Why was 2015 rated the hottest year on record? And what is behind the current changing weather patterns? What makes last year's COP21 Paris Climate Agreement a milestone? And what prompted the launch of Operation Hydrate? What time is it? This is Question Time. Welcome to Question Time. My name is Mpho Tseidu. South Africa is a water-scarce country with an average of 450 millimeters of rainfall per year, compared to the global average of 870 millimeters. This places the country as the 30th driest in the world. The worst drought in 23 years that has left animals and people scrambling for dwindling water reserves. Scientists say the El Nino effect that results in drier than normal conditions from December to January in South Central Africa has compounded the already precarious situation. Meanwhile, Operation Hydrate has embarked on a water drive to bring relief to the worst affected communities around the country. The operation has managed to raise 61 million rand in one weekend in their unwavering commitment to add to the 4 million litres already distributed to drought-stricken communities. A reminder that we are live. Therefore, you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial 0891104210, our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24, and you can also join us via Skype and Google Hangout. Just send us your username via Twitter at QuestionTime24 and we'll be able to link up with you today. My guest, Professor Bob Scholes, who is Professor of Systems Ecology at Wits University. Yasim Teba is the spokesperson of Operation Hydrate. Gentlemen, let me welcome you.
Good evening.
Well, Prof, I must tell you that as we were preparing for this show, one of our viewers sent me a message and say, why are you talking drought? There's a lot of politics happening. Why don't you talk about politics? Perhaps you would want to have a message to my viewer. Why is it important that we talk about this and not politics?
Well, you can't drink politics is the short answer. You know, drought is something very fundamental, like food, that it won't disappear just because you have a talk shop about it. And that's why we need to focus on these type of issues.
Yeah. And 2015 declared the hottest year ever?
That's worldwide,
okay.
Not an answer for South Africa. The numbers are not in for South Africa yet.
Okay.
But you know, hundreds, thousands of weather stations all around the world every day send in their temperatures to through the international system. That's used for doing weather forecasting and, you know, all kinds of applications like that. It includes on the lands and also ships at sea. We have a system of floating buoys drifting around the ocean. So all of this comes together and it gets incorporated in a big set of databases run around the world, and then they do the sums on that and add up, averaging over the whole world what the global temperature was. And last year is officially, by a long way, the hottest year in the historical record.
But are you finding the human factor in all this?
There's definitely a human factor in this, that is beyond question. The particular heat, particularly in December and January of this year, has two components to it. One was the El Nino, and that's a natural phenomenon which has been going on for thousands of years.
Okay.
When we have an El Nino, things tend to be drier and hotter in southern Africa. But the difference this time is it came on top of an elevated baseline. So our temperature has been gradually rising over the last 2 centuries as a result of human actions. And we know that without any doubt whatsoever. And so we had this double whammy of a high temperature due to a natural phenomenon on a high baseline due to human actions. And as far as the temperature concerned, it's about equally in those two components.
So perhaps before I go to him, are you therefore saying that we are responsible for the pain that we are suffering now?
We certainly are to a large degree responsible for the pain, not only with respect to the changing climate of the world, but I'm sure we'll get into this discussion later. Okay. We're responsible for the fact that we haven't managed our water systems well enough to ensure that people get the water that they need.
And then Operation Hydrate was launched.
Yes, Operation Hydrate was launched on the 4th of January. If I may say, we didn't even know it was going to be called Operation Hydrate when we launched it. Our idea was to get water to the areas that were most affected. At that time, we indicated that we're going to be sending water to Senegal. It was a group of volunteers that came together and decided that we're going to collect some funds, we're going to collect some water, and go down ourselves personally and distribute it to people that were so desperate for the water. That weekend, we went down. It was the first weekend in Jan. And seeing the effects of the drought and seeing what the communities were going through because they had no water. It was no water for some time by the time we got there. We realized that we have to do something more. We realized that we couldn't do it on our own. And we came back and we made a call to South Africans. We made a call to corporate South Africa to join us. And let's try and get water to communities like Senegal, Aliwal North, Swartregens. The response has been overwhelming.
But I'm not feeling the effect of drought, right? I mean, I still have my water, I still take my shower. And I mean, being a resident of Johannesburg, why should I really bother?
The reality of it is that us in Johannesburg, we can't conceptualize the fact that you can switch on a tap and you don't get water. Yeah. I'm talking of a personal experience when I visited Senegal. Drove into the town quite early in the morning. We got there at 7:30. I looked for a bathroom and I couldn't find a bathroom because all the bathrooms had been chained up. I looked for a cup of coffee and I couldn't get a cup of coffee because all the coffee machines just had a sign on it saying no water. That's the reality of the situation. For us in Johannesburg, it's very difficult to conceptualize the fact that there's just no water. People were resorting to drinking sewage water. People were letting their animals off their farm so they don't have to deal with the carcasses. But that was the desperation that some of the communities were facing.
How do we then play a role?
We decided to get water to these areas. The need for water was very, very desperate. We decided to get water urgently into those areas, and we started with our 5-liter bottles. We carried on with our collections. We continue to carry on with our collections because it's just some people, they just haven't got clean drinking water.
But where is the municipality when all this is happening? Why are you doing government's job?
We could ask those questions. And I think in some areas we'll still be waiting for the answers. The need for water in those areas was so desperate, we decided we're going to take on the responsibility and we're going to do it. I think that's what made Operation Hydrate a little different. We decided to do something about it. People came together and we were able to get water into those areas. It might be a 5-liter bottle, sometimes 2 bottles, 3 bottles, but we're offering some relief. And I think that's what motivates us to carry on. Okay. We can carry on. We can ask questions, but we know that municipalities also are under strain. Okay. And we need to get water. We can't allow fellow South Africans to be in situations like that where it leads to an extent where they're contemplating of suicide. And these are the stories that are coming out of those areas.
All right. Thabo, you're calling us from Mpumalanga. Welcome.
How are you, Doc?
I'm well. Thanks for the call.
Are you speaking to someone like this? I just want to know what is actually happening with this drought and all this stuff, because South Africa is experiencing a very serious crisis with water. But there's too much water in the sea. Can't these people do what the so-called desalination and all this stuff so that we can help our people?
Okay. Prof?
And the process of desalination, I will listen on that.
Sure, thanks very much. Well, I'm happy that this question came up, because for ordinary people, the sea is full with water. Fine, it may be salty and all that, but you are scientists. You should be able to turn that water into something else. If they can turn water into beer, I'm sure they can turn salty water into drinkable water.
Right. You know, my hydrologist colleagues are fond of a little saying that says, you know, water comes in three forms: too much, too little, or too salty. The world actually has lots and lots of water, but only a tiny fraction of it is suitable for human consumption. And getting those contaminants out of the water is an extremely energy-intensive process. Because of something called thermodynamics, there's no way around this problem.
Okay.
You have to put in a very large amount of energy per unit of water that you get out from whatever technology you apply, and there's no way out of that.
Okay.
And so in emergency situations, people do that. So along coastlines in severe drought situations, they do have desalination plants.
Okay.
That is well known. But you can't supply a country the size of South Africa on a day-to-day basis with those kind of measures. It would cost more than we could possibly afford. The secret is to use nature's own desalination plant, which is rainfall, and just manage it better.
Okay. Reminder that you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial 0891104210. Tweet us your comments. Our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24 Skype. You can send us your username via Twitter as well, and we'll be able to interact with you. Please don't go away. We'll return shortly.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. Our guest today, Professor Bob Scholes from the University of Wits. He's a professor of systems ecology, and Yasim Tiba is the spokesperson of Operation Hydrate. Our number is 0891104210. @QuestionTime24 is our Twitter handle. And perhaps, Prof, let's now look at how do ordinary South Africans perhaps play a role in the fight against climate change?
You know, the agreements which are reached by governments at that high level ultimately have to be put into practice by ordinary people and ordinary companies. It's not governments who make the changes and reduce the emissions. It's us that does that. And there are lots of things that individuals can do even before we have, you know, regulations and taxes and things that would, you know, cause us to moderate our climate changing behaviors. So, you know, the main thing that I advise people to do is just be thoughtful about when they make consumer choices. Let me give you an example. I had to replace the fridge in my kitchen the other day, and you go along to the shop and there's dozens and dozens of fridges all lined up over there, and what would you normally do? You'd go and look for the one that looks nicest and has the lowest price, and you'd buy that one. But I insisted that the salesman bring me the data sheets. It's supposed to be displayed on the front and say which one of these is energy efficient. In the end, I bought a very beautifully looking fridge, and it uses perhaps only 25% of the energy of the one that I was replacing. Now, it doesn't put me at a disadvantage. I have a lovely fridge. It makes things cold. It saves me money, and it also helps to save the planet.
Okay.
So just by making simple decisions, we can make a big difference.
Adrian, you are in the Free State.
Good evening to you. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, sir. I just want to, I'm going to attack the government again. Because, you know, there's a saying that says, if you can't feed your own people in your country, you will end up in a war. So why is it in every city you can go, in even small towns, the pipes are leaking? And I mean, it's 22 years, 23 years now already. Can't the government fix one pipe? I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's where all the drinking water goes to. Now they want to take the farms to say they want to take they want to rule the dams on the farms and everything. So you can't just drink; you must eat as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Adrian. Well, let me.
We visited areas like Senekal, Swartdrugens. We went down to the dams. The dams are dry. There is no doubt. There is absolutely no doubt that apart from the extreme weather conditions, there is a breakdown, or in certain areas, no maintenance being done on the water infrastructure.
Yes, infrastructure.
Take Senekal for example. Lesotho's released some water, and they continue to release a lot of water.
Yeah.
That water needs to be pumped into Senekal, but there isn't. It's just a basic lack of infrastructure. That and the people are feeling the brunt of it. Vandalism, we've seen it. Vandalism continues, and it's a few people that are very, very selfish. But the reality is, it's happening in those areas. So while this year might be the hottest year, and the effects of the drought are there, I think the lack of infrastructure in certain areas is a major issue. That municipalities have to tackle.
What kind of vandalism are you talking about?
Pumps going missing. You know, there's a lot of areas where tanks were put up. Some of the taps on the tanks are missing, and it's a breakdown of infrastructure that's gone on for years.
Okay.
It's not something that's recent.
All right.
But municipalities really need to address that issue.
Semi, you are calling us from around Gauteng.
Yes, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the call, Sami.
I just wanted to say something. I think the whole issue of drought is not a problem. The problem is actually the ignorance that we people have. I mean, for instance, if you look at the people that you are staying with, you'll find someone watering the garden using a hose pipe, you know? And when you tell that person that, you know what, this is really not correct for people to use the hose pipe watering the garden, and you get funny comments that people, you know what, the municipalities were eating our own money.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that contribution, Semi. Well, we have already spoken about the human factor, but perhaps let's talk quickly about this 61 million rand. Is it real money, or these are just pledges?
On Friday, we launched a campaign in partnership with the Nelson Mandela Foundation and Proudly South Africa.
Yes.
The minister surprised us, came to the launch, supported the launch, and pledged 50 million rand from the National Lottery Board. That money will be transferred to the Nelson Mandela Foundation for projects related to Operation Hydrate. The rest of the money was people coming forward, corporates coming forward and donating either water or cash to the project.
Oh, so it's not like you really worked hard.
We work very hard.
No, I mean, if somebody comes and says 50 million rand and you're saying you broke the record, you've got 67. I mean, I think 61 rather.
We've worked hard, and a lot of our hard working will still be seen.
What is this money going to be used for?
Well, you know, we know that getting water in 5-liter bottles is not the most practical and economical, but we know it's the quickest way. So while we continue to do that to get it to areas where people desperately need water, we are looking at carrying on with boreholes in certain areas. We've got our hydrologists already on the ground giving us reports. We're looking at a number of other ways to store water, aqua tanks, JoJo tanks in certain areas where boreholes are not as feasible. But all that needs to be done in conjunction with the municipalities, in conjunction with the Department of Water. We don't want to put up all these things and then it's not being maintained. Okay. So there's a lot of groundwork that still needs to be done.
Prof, the COP21 Paris Climate Agreement, what did it entail?
So for the first time, that COP21 had virtually every country in the world, 195 countries, agreeing that we have to do something quite serious about avoiding dangerous climate change. You know, this discussion has been going on since 1992, and there have not been strong commitments to actually doing anything about it. But in the Paris meeting, those countries agreed to aim at a target of stopping the world from warming by more than 2 degrees above the pre-industrial. And they're doing that by making voluntary commitments to reduce that. When you add up those voluntary commitments, they won't keep us below 2 degrees. They, at the moment, will take us to about 2.7 degrees. But there is a mechanism within the agreement to revise the targets and revise the commitments as we see climate disasters unfolding.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the tweets here, what our viewers are saying. Yusuf Abramji says, a convoy of some 20 trucks will leave Johannesburg for drought-stricken areas on Friday at 10 a.m. from FNB Stadium. Okay, that's Operation Hydrate. And Standim Rudu, in Limpopo, Ramuchemi village, a donkey fell into the well, a community well. They fetch water from, I guess. How can you help us? Okay. Well, I don't know.
Okay. To comment on Yusuf's tweet, we're going to be dispatching a number of vehicles, 20 vehicles from FNB Stadium. There'll be another 7 vehicles leaving from Durban, basically going to the areas and distributing water. We've identified a number of areas this week that need urgent water. So on Friday the vehicles will be leaving. Majority of that distribution will take place on Saturday.
So are you only doing Free State? Here is somebody in Limpopo saying in Ramuchemi village.
Not at all. We've already distributed in 5 provinces. We've distributed a number of times in Swartberg in the northwest, Aliwal North in the Eastern Cape, Kokstad in KZN. But I mean, again, you know, we need to get water to people that are very, very desperate for it. There's certain areas that might not have tap water, but municipality is getting water into those areas. So we've got a team that goes out, assess the situation, and as soon as they confirm that water is needed, and we confirm with disaster management that water is needed, we make sure that we send water over there as quick as possible.
Prof, very quickly, I recently flew over Limpopo River and I could see that it's also actually drying up. Never thought that was possible.
Well, the Limpopo River has always been what we call an ephemeral river. In other words, one that doesn't have water in it all year round. I've been, to the Limpopo many, many times in my life, and sometimes it's 100 meters wide and you can't swim across it, and other times you can walk across it quite easily. And that's really quite usual in a country like ours, which is an arid country. The sort of notion that rivers always have water in them just doesn't apply to us.
Perhaps finally, your campaign, realizing that you've only spoken about provinces here in South Africa. So if I'm experiencing drought and I'm in Zimbabwe,
we have received reports of drought in Zimbabwe, Botswana. We have teams that are definitely addressing it. We made contact with a company in Botswana that is already distributing Botswana. We've basically asked them to concentrate on Botswana. So while it not be under the Operation Hydrate banner, we are communicating. I think it's important that we need to assist. Moving water is a major economic logistic challenge. But we will try and continue in areas where it's possible.
Including Zimbabwe?
Including some of the countries, if possible. We will look at it.
All right, thank you. That was question time for today. A big thank you to my guest and to you for watching the show. From me and the crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.
All the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
According to the World Health Organization, the number of people who are obese doubled between 1980 and 2008. Furthermore, 35% of adults over the age of 20 are obese. More than 2 in 3 adults are considered to be overweight or obese. More than 1 in 3 adults are considered to be obese. More than 1 in 20 adults are considered to have extreme obesity. Furthermore, 35% of adults over the age of 20 are obese. In 2010, overweight and obesity were estimated to cause 3.4 million deaths, Lancet reports in 2013. South Africa has the highest overweight and obesity rate in sub-Saharan Africa, with up to 70% of women and a third of men being classified as overweight or obese. A staggering 40% of women in our country are obese, according to the Heart and Stroke Foundation. The bulk of our population used to be physically active, particularly in 1970 to 1999, and ate a diet high in fiber and indigenous vegetables, low in animal protein and refined carbs. However, due to increased urbanization, people are adopting a more westernized diet, high in unhealthy fats, sugar, and salt. Greater disposable income and a faster-paced lifestyle have resulted in people consuming more fast foods and convenient foods, according to the European Association for the Study of Obesity. The Department of Health realizes the seriousness of the obesity crisis and has included this in their National Non-Communicable Diseases Strategic Goals to assist with the obesity problem and increase physical activity by 10% by 2020, reduce the consumption of alcohol by 20% by 2020, reduce the percentage of people who are obese and overweight by 10% by 2020. Obesity has a significant impact on health and well-being. It may also burden a person's workplace abilities. Workers who are obese may need longer rest breaks to return to their initial state of muscle function. 2.6 million people die each year as a result of being overweight or obese, according to the World Health Organization.
This situation demands urgent strategic action encompassing a wide range of sectors, including those responsible for food and beverage production, manufacturing, marketing, and retail.
Obesity has major implications for the healthcare systems in South Africa as they are faced with increasing demands of care for health conditions related to obesity, overweight such as diabetes mellitus, osteoarthritis, cancers, and major cardiovascular disease.